What's up guys, it's Eric from Rarticate and welcome back to another entry into our Rogue Rumble series where we take a look at some overlooked or underutilized cards and we try to make some rogue deck ideas out of them. And for today we are looking at Raticate BREAK Nihilego GX. This is actually a deck that was chosen by one of our patrons, Fernando Izaguirre. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Sorry Fernando if I did mess that up. But basically over on our Patreon, depending on how much you pledge to us, one of the perks that you get is actually to be able to choose videos for us to create. And one of the other perks to them is that these videos actually have less ads than our normal videos. So if you want to learn about how to have an even bigger say over the type of content we put out on the channel and learn how to get some other cool perks along the way, I will have a link to our Patreon in the description below. So this is the deck that Fernando wanted us to cover, and we've had a couple of other suggestions to cover this, so it seemed like a good time to finally get around to it. So Raticate BREAK Nihilego GX. Raticate BREAK is, it's a break Pokemon. It's been around for quite some time, but it's never really seen too much play. Some people have tried it out with a couple different cards, over the past year or so that it's been around. But, Nihilego GX looks like it might have some synergy with it, so let's take a look at and see what the deck might be about. So anyways, we have Raticate BREAK. It is a break Pokemon, and we're looking at it because it has Super Fang. So just for a double card with synergy, you put damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until it only has 10 HP remaining. So that's like kind of neat, I guess, but Raticate BREAK, it's only 110 hit points, kind of weak. So what makes this good? Well, the idea is that you want to poison your opponent. That way you do Super Fang just for a DCE and they get knocked out in between turns thanks to poison. So that means basically just for a DCE you're taking one-hit knockouts. Raticate BREAK, is going to be kind of a glass cannon, but you know what? If we can manage to, use Super Fang or maybe one of our opponent's GXs that have a lot of energy or, something like that, we can definitely take some easy knockouts and maybe catch our opponent off guard a little bit. So Raticate BREAK is going to be what the deck is based around. We are playing a couple different Raticates, though. We are playing 3 of the ones from Evolutions. So we are looking at for its crunch attack, discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, 10 damage. So this kind of gives you an alternate win condition in certain matchups, maybe stripping your opponent of their energy. And then it also has Shadowy Bite for a single energy to 60 times the amount of special energy cards in your opponent's discard pile. So like I said, it just kind of gives you an alternate win condition against certain decks out there. Unfortunately, it does only have 60 hit points, so things like Buzzwole GX are definitely going to do a number on you. So we are still playing one of the other Raticate. It does have a little bit more HP, so that's one reason we are running one copy of this one. But the other reason, it has this ability Antibodies. This Pokemon can't be affected by any special conditions, and you remove any special conditions affecting this Pokemon. So this is kind of good because it has synergy with our Nihilego GX. Since it puts status conditions on both active Pokemon, this Raticate will be more able to get around that. It does have an attack Dirty Shock for a card with synergy. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poison, and discard all tool cards attached to that Pokemon. So this does have synergy with Raticate BREAK. If you have to, you can do Dirty Shock, and then use Super Fang the following turn to finish taking a knockout. Though I would argue Raticate is so fragile it probably won't stick around after you use this Dirty Shock attack. And of course we are playing 4 copies of the Rattata from Evolutions because it has this ability. Whenever you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may discard all tool cards attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. The other key component of the deck, like I've mentioned, is Nihilego GX. It's one of these new Ultra Beasts that came out of Crimson Invasion, and we're looking at it for its Empty Light ability. Whenever you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may leave both active Pokemon confused and poisoned. So like I said, this is going to be one of the ways we can take knockouts with Raticate BREAK. We can play a Nihilego down on the bench, poison our opponent's active Pokemon, and use Super Fang to take a knockout. We are only playing 2 copies of this card though, just because bench space is definitely a luxury, and we need other ways to ensure that we can take knockouts for the rest of the game, because take 6 prizes, you can't really do that even with 4 Nihilego in your deck unless you only take knockouts on GXs, and it's just going to be a little tough. That's a lot of bench space to have to commit to Nihilego. So this is one of the outs that we have to poisoning our opponent. But we'll get to our other way in a minute. We also have one Tapu Koko. For its flying flip attack for our DCE does 20 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So there's certain situations where you might use Super Fang, but you might not have a way to poison your opponent's active. Let's say you whiff the Nihilego GX, or they get rid of your tools that poison your opponent, which we'll get to in a little bit as well. So Tapu Koko is nice in those situations because if your opponent retreats once you've put them down to 10 hit points, you can clean up your knockouts with Flying Flip. So that's just kind of an alternate way to clean up our knockouts that we set up with Super Fang. Then we're playing 2 copies of Tapu Lele, obviously for that Wonder Tag ability, search out supporters from our deck. Then we're also playing a 2/2 Octillery line for Abyssal Hand. So once during your turn before you attack, you may draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. There's a lot of moving pieces to this deck. We need to get out Raticates, we have to get out DCE, we have to get out the Nihilego GX. There's just a lot of cards that we need to complete our combos in this deck, and Octillery really helps with that to ensure that we can draw what we need. So moving on to our supporters, some of this is pretty standard. 4 Sycamore, 4 N, 3 Guzma. Pretty standard stuff. We are playing 1 Bridget as well as an early game supporter, but we're also playing 1 copy of Pokemon Fan Club. So Pokemon Fan Club, search your deck for up to 2 basics, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So you might be thinking, well, why would you want to play Fan Club instead of just a second Bridget? Well, the reason for that is because we have a couple of Pokemon with some coming into play abilities. So most notably, if we maybe in the mid game when we want to take a knockout with Raticate BREAK, we can use Fan Club to search our deck for a Nihilego GX, put it into our hand, and then we can bench it and make use of its ability. Similarly for Rattata, to make use of Mischievous Fang, we have to play it from our hand. So Pokemon Fan Club is actually just superior to Bridget in certain situations. That's why we are playing the 1 copy of that. Also playing 1 copy of Acerola, so put one of your damaged Pokemon, all cards attached to it, back into your hand. So hopefully we can use this to reuse Nihilego GX at some point. Also can potentially reuse things like Tapu Lele. So mainly for Nihilego GX, but like I said, we can also use it to get back our Leles too. So going to the rest of the trainer cards, 4 Ultra Ball, pretty standard, 2 Field Blower, 2 Rescue Stretcher, all very standard inclusions. We are playing 2 Evo Soda though, so search your deck for a Pokemon that evolves from one of your other Pokemon and evolve it. So this is good because we really can't miss a turn without evolving into a Raticate. It's just very, very important because Raticate BREAK is essentially a stage 2 Pokemon that you can't rare candy into. So you really can't miss a beat with this deck, especially since all of your Pokemon have such low hit points. You really just have to ensure that you're getting out a consistent amount of Raticates also very quickly. Evo Soda, we're also playing this over something like Timer Ball because it will allow us to get around Po-Town. And that's very important because since our Raticates do have such low hit points, sometimes if you evolve and then while there's a Po-Town play, it can actually just knock you out. So Evo Soda, I think, is definitely superior in this type of deck. 2 Special Charge just to get back 2 special energies from our discard into our deck. So we are actually only playing special energy in this deck, just 4 double colorless energy. So we really need to make sure that we can keep recycling those throughout the course of a game. Also playing 2 Chaos Tower, kind of an interesting card in the list. It's one of these like dual effect stadiums similar to Parallel City. Has a different effect depending on which way it is facing. So on the light side of the card, whatever player has that facing them, their Pokemon can't be affected by poison or confusion, which is very important because we can face it towards us, and even on our Raticates that don't have the antibody ability, we will be immune from Nihilego GX's poison and confusion. So it's just to help in those situations. And we are also playing 3 copies of Floatstone just to give free retreat to our Pokemon. We have some kind of awkward retreating Pokemon like Tapu Lele and Octillery, so we want to make sure that we can, get them out of the active spot if we have to. But the other way we are going to try to set knockouts is Poison Barb. So this is a tool card back from the Sun and Moon base set. So if the Pokemon this card is attached to is your active Pokemon and is damaged by an opponent's attack, even if they're knockout, the attacking Pokemon is now poisoned. So a lot of times you can use Nihilego GX to poison and confuse your opponent. take a knockout with Super Fang, and then if you have Poison Barb attached to your Raticate BREAK, that sets up a knockout for the following turn as well. So like I said, bench space is very precious. You really can't afford to bench a lot of Nihilego GXs in this deck, so that's why we are running the lower count of that and a heavier count of Poison Barb. And then just to round out the list for double colorless energy, like I already mentioned. So yeah guys, that's going to be the Raticate BREAK deck that we are going to be trying out. I'm still not sure if this deck is very competitive or not, but it's definitely fun to try out cards like this that don't see a whole lot of play. But let's head over to the battle portion of the video and we'll show you how this deck looks in action. Alright guys, so we found ourselves a game here and our opponent's going to call the coin flip. And I don't like the look of that fighting coin that our opponent has, because if we're playing against something like a Buzzwole deck, we might be in some big trouble. That definitely seems like one of this deck's worst matchups, so really hoping that's not the case. But luckily our opening hand is actually kind of solid. We have the Tapu Koko, it's definitely going to be our ideal starter here. We have Remoraid that we can always use to get out artillery. We have the float stone ready to go just in case this thing does get Guzma'd out for some reason on the first turn. Have an Ultra Ball, which means we have access to Lele, and here our opponent does reveal they have look like a Strong Energy, Garbodor, etc. So I'm a little bummed, I'm not gonna lie. And our opponent flips over a Buzzwole GX, so this game might be over pretty quick depending on how it goes. But Buzzwole, just in general, a really strong Pokemon that came out of Crimson Invasion. That Jet Punch attack it has is really going to wreak havoc on us. It does 30 to the active and 30 to one of our bench Pokemon. And since Rattata is weak to fighting, this thing is going to be able to pick us off pretty quickly. Raticate has 60 hit points, so Raticate's not even that much stronger. So we really are going to have to play this very carefully if we ever want a shot at winning this. Here we definitely have some options. We have a Guzma, we have an N, we have Ultra Ball. So we could Ultra Ball and get a Lele to grab Bridget. Similarly, we could just Ultra Ball, grab a Rattata and N. Or I think another option we might be able to do is we might be able to actually grab Rattata and play Guzma. I kind of like that. So what I can maybe do here is I'm gonna get rid of the Ace Roll and Raticate BREAK, and I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to get the Rattata, and it's risky, but I think we're going to go for the Guzma play here. If our opponent doesn't have a Float Stone, we're going to actually be in a half-decent spot. So if our opponent has a Float Stone or a Guzma, we're in pretty bad shape. But if we can manage to stay alive this turn, I actually feel kind of good, because we'll be able to evolve into a Raticate. We can also maybe get down another Rattata, but here our opponent is going to Sycamore. And what do they get? That's the big question. They have a Strong Energy down on their Buzzwole, and oh, they're just a pass, so we actually lucked out. Our opponent did not get the Float Stone, so this actually might be a turn we could maybe come back. So what do we do? I mean, I feel like we don't attach DCE. There's not much of a point here. No need to attack with it just yet. But here we're actually in a good spot. We have a second Rattata, and we have some options here. So our opponent has Potown out. I think we should probably get rid of that. So here we can Ultra Ball. Let's probably get rid of Fan Club, and the other Ultra Ball seems best to me here. So we could go for Eradicate, but I might get a little greedy and go for Octillery. I think Raticate's definitely the safe play here. What we can actually do is just gonna take a look, see what all we have in the deck, and I'm gonna grab an Octillery here. It's definitely a little bit risky. We're kind of getting a little greedy, just trying to dig for some extra resources. And so we're gonna use Abyssal Hand, try to draw some more cards, try to get a supporter for next turn. We do get the supporter, but we don't have a Raticate, so that was definitely a little bit of a risky play on my part. I definitely think it kind of backfired. We did get a supporter. That means we won't have to bench the Lele, which is good, because we want to kind of go the one prize route, not give up any extra prizes. But on the downside, we did not get a Raticate, so that is pretty bad, actually. This deck, just in general, can't really afford to whiff your evolutions, but especially against a deck like Buzzwole, it's going to be very bad. And I would imagine our opponent's probably going to get a floatstone here. I mean, I was surprised the last turn when our opponent did not get a floatstone, so there's no way they're going to whiff this turn unless they just don't have a supporter. But our opponent is playing an Ultra Ball, getting a Lele, so they are definitely going to have an out to a supporter. Okay, and they have floatstone in hand. That's interesting. I wonder if they top deck that, because they didn't play it last turn. That definitely seems interesting. So it looks like our opponent is... Oh wait, I end on my last turn. I think that's what it was. So, but here our opponent is going to use Tapu Lele. What support are they going to get? They could go for a Guzma. I think that's a decent play. They might not have a draw supporter in hand, so they might just have to go for a Sycamore. But here they're actually going to go for a Gladion. That's a little interesting. So they must know that they have a crucial card prized. So I'm curious what they're going to get off this. But here they're going to go for the Strong Energy. That's interesting. But this way they will be able to take a knockout with Jet Punch, so I guess that makes some sense here. Jet Punch does 30 base damage, one Strong Energy puts up to 50 base, another one puts up to 70 base, times 2 for Tapu Koko's weakness, so see what they're doing here, and let's see if we can make something happen. We can Rescue Stretcher, getting back the Koko and the Raticate BREAK back into the deck, and here let's Abyssal Hand, try to draw some cards before we Sycamore. And that's pretty bad. We drew another Rescue Stretcher. I definitely did not want to see that, but okay. So we're actually in a decent spot. Well, I shouldn't say a decent spot. We're not. But we did get some decent cards off of this Sycamore. So we did get 2 Raticates. That's actually pretty important here. We have... Do we bench the second Remoraid? If our opponent gets out Garbodor especially, that's pretty bad, but... Yeah, let's do it. Why not? We play Field Blowers. We can get rid of that stuff if we have to. And we could play Nihilego GX, but I am specifically hanging on to it just because we want to use it to take a knockout or Raticate BREAK. So here we just did Crunch, getting rid of a special energy. And here our opponent is knocking out this Raticate as expected. It's not too hard to do with only 60 hit points, and you're weak to fighting. So here we're actually in a half decent spot. We have the Nihilego GX ready to go. So let's do that. We're gonna Poison Confuse this Buzzwole. So let's use Abyssal Hand. And then what we can do is, okay, so we draw Poison Barb. That's actually good. We definitely want to get one of those down. Then what we can do is we can evolve into another Octillery, use Abyssal Hand again, and draw some additional cards. Okay, I guess let's get down another Poison Barb just in case, because we definitely want to play an end here. Well, do we want to? We could go for Sycamore and really dig to hit this double Colorless Energy. What have we used? We've already used an end, so we would be basically down to 1 end for the rest of the game. I don't like that, so here we're just going to play the end instead of going for the Sycamore. And we do hit the double Colorless Energy, which is pretty important. The only downside is we don't have another Rattata in place, so if our opponent gets another Buzzwole with like a Strong Energy or something like that, we're going to be in some pretty bad shape. But here we're going to do Super Fang, taking a knockout. Ugh, those prizes are not the best, unfortunately. But, you know, we're in a half decent spot. Our opponent doesn't have an attacker ready to go just yet. But here they're going to get down a Potown. I'm fine with that for the moment, just because we don't have anything we're going to evolve into this turn. But maybe they're going to go for some sort of Espeon, EX, Potown, Devolution play. But here our opponent just passes, so I'm feeling pretty good. But here we have a Rattata. We're going to bench that. We can get rid of that Floatstone. So here I could play the Chaos Tower, getting rid of their Potown, but I really don't want to if we're not going to actually evolve. So what do we do here? I might put a Floatstone down just in case we get end or something like that. Like end and get like knocked out in the same turn. So our opponent really didn't do much on their turn, so I'm definitely not going to play an end. Honestly, I don't think we need to even Sycamore either, so what I might do here is just attack this Trubbish. What tech do we use? Like, I guess we'll do Dirty Shock. I guess maybe Super Fang would have been better, actually. But, you know, nevertheless, we're essentially two-shotting this Trubbish, so we're going to have to do 2 attacks to knock it out anyways, but here our opponent just passed over to us, so we can use Super Fang to take a knockout, but we're going to use Evo Soda getting out another Raticate. And yet again, I am not playing this Chaos Tower. I want to wait until we actually have a Raticate BREAK to evolve into, because if we play down this Chaos Tower and our opponent has another Po-Town ready to go, that's going to be bad for us. So here we can do Super Fang, taking a knockout in this Trubbish, and I want to get the Poison Barb down because if our opponent does promote something like a Tapu Lele or something like that, or even like a Garbodor if they get one, they will be hit with the poison to set up a Super Fang knockout for next turn. So they promote the Lele, maybe they have a DCE or something. I'd be completely okay if they wanted to attack into this Raticate BREAK. Here they have a Floatstone on the Lele, okay. And they're just going to promote a Trubbish. I'm actually kind of okay with that. And yeah, just another pass. So we are kind of lucking out here. Our opponent is not getting what they need. And, okay. So we could put down the Chaos Tower, evolve into Raticate BREAK. I think that's a fine play. But the only problem... might be a little bit greedy, but what I actually might do is just Super Fang this turn. And, you know, since we're not taking a knockout on this Trubbish, we could play DC. No, let's not play the DC in case our opponent has like a Lele, or something like that. But here I'm just going to do Super Fang. We're not taking a knockout, so I really don't want to evolve into this Raticate BREAK just yet. So our opponent has an Ultra Ball. What are they going to do here? Okay, they're going to go for a Garbodor. And here, this is actually kind of a situation where I'm happy I did not bump the stadium. So yeah, this is a situation that I'm actually kind of happy about. So they have the Rainbow Energy, they're going to Trash Lynch into us, and they're actually going to get knocked out going back into our turn, so we don't even have to attack to take a knockout. So I knew I was not going to knock out that Trubbish on my last turn, so I wanted to try to use their Po-Town, you know, if possible, against them. And luckily it actually did pay off here. So what I might do this turn is I might play the Chaos Tower now, since Po-Town's kind of useless for us to use against our opponent anymore. So this is now, I definitely think, the turn to evolve into Raticate BREAK. We could play down the double colorless energy. What have we used? Oh, we have 3 double colorless energy in the discard pile. That is pretty gross. Luckily, we still have 2 special charge. But what I might do is hang on to the double colorless energy in case our opponent plays something like Kartana GX or like an enhanced hammer. I really don't want to lose this only DC that we have left. So I might just pass and just let this this Garbodor get knocked out. Oh, it did not get knocked out going back into my turn. I did misspeak there. But anyways, but yeah, we're still in a good spot, but our opponent has a Buzzwole. I'm fine with that, but just a pass, man. So we got super lucky, I'm not even gonna lie, in this matchup. So what we can do here is actually Ultra Ball, getting rid of a Sycamore and Evo Soda. We can grab our last Nihilego GX. And so what we can do is we can bench it, use that Empty Light ability to poison and confuse this Tapu Lele, and then we can retreat back into Raticate BREAK, attach DCE, and use Super Fang to take a knockout. So you can see there towards the end of the game, I wasn't playing many cards from my hand. Another reason for that is it kind of concealed the strength of my hand. I didn't want to give my opponent any ideas that I might have a way to actually do some stuff. Happy to show off this Raticate BREAK deck. Like I said earlier in the video, big thanks to Fernando and the rest of our patrons over on patreon.com/RareCandyTCG for supporting the channel and help making videos like this happen. So like I mentioned earlier too, if you guys want to have a bigger say over the type of content that we put out and help support us, definitely go check out the link to our Patreon below in the description, or pick up something from our online store at RareCandyTCG.com. It would mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.